And we have one more speaker on the panel, Sam Judd from Sustainable Coastlines. Sam was the 2013 Young New Zealander of the Year. That's a really wonderful award to win, but it's going to be a point where you look back and go, oh shit, that was ages ago, I must be really old now. Sorry, that's just in my head. And he's also co-founder and CEO of Sustainable Coastlines, as well as a New Zealand Herald writer on the environment. Sustainable Coastlines has delivered educational programs to 115,000 people. It's motivated over 39,000 participants to remove more than 1 million litres of rubbish from the coast and to plant over 20,000 native trees along waterways. Sam is now delivering and upscaling these programs throughout New Zealand and the Pacific. He's passionate about pathways to the rehabilitation of offenders and worked with community probation service workers and prisoners on projects combining work with education. He's collaborating with the Department of Corrections to produce native trees for riparian restoration and developing sustainable construction solutions using repurposed materials. Sam travels internationally to give presentations on behavioural change programs and open source tools to prevent marine debris. He also sits on the board of several non-profit organisations that address the health of our oceans. Sam says the key issue facing the Hauraki Gulf is that it needs Kaitiaki who are prepared to take ownership of issues affecting this incredible waterway, and we need to talk about how we can inspire this. Would you please welcome Sam Judd?
Well, thank you very much, Michelle. I certainly don't feel nor look young anymore. I'm heavily challenged follically, and the idea of being Young New Zealander of the Year was actually only a couple of years ago, but it was a bit of a surprise. Look, thanks for the introduction. I've really enjoyed listening to all these different viewpoints and hear all of these issues. And, you know, I do want to talk about kaitiakitanga. I want to talk about leadership. How do we get people to stand up and get motivated to create change? Behavioural change came into it at a really good time for me to talk about that. We have a team of psychologists that help us pro bono to prove behavioural change. It's a really important focus for us. We basically started by doing large-scale coastal cleanup events. We did it for fun, no other reason. We're surfers, we're spear fishermen. I used to be a commercial freediver, actually, harvesting kina out of the islands around here in the Gulf. And we then just started running these events for fun. And we cleaned up 2.8 tonnes of rubbish in one day off Great Barrier Island on the coast that face Auckland City. 1 year later, almost to the day, we picked up 3.1 tonnes of rubbish, which was 300 kilograms more. We realised we were an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. We weren't comfortable being that, so we started building a fence. That came in the form of an educational presentation that we started delivering, and then we upscaled that presentation. But we realised, you know, whilst we're getting this anecdotal evidence coming through of people saying, well, damn you, every time I go to the beach, my kids fill up my boot full of rubbish, and teachers and parents and all sorts of people coming back to us and saying, you know, I don't actually use plastic bottles anymore, or I now have a stainless steel straw, you know, real small baby steps that are actual things changing. We realised we can't just rely on that, so we got the professionals to help us, and they do it for free. Because we're a charity, it makes it a bit easier. And we have a team of these people, and they're starting to prove that it is changing. And we're doing everything we can, but we're still a small charity. You know, we've upscaled this. We're doing, like, educating thousands of people, but we realise we can't do this by ourselves. There's no way. We need to create these collaborative forums. We need to share everything that we have. So we changed our strategy and turned it into something that we called capacity building, where we train people to do these presentations that can then affect behavioural change. And that's now enabling us to go to a wider audience on presentations, educational, and event management. Everyone loves events. 160 events. Please, round of applause for Seaweek. That's awesome. We're actually in the middle of one of them, which is out here on Waiheke Island. I was cleaning up the beach today with a whole bunch of kids from one of the schools in South Auckland. But we also had, people who, you know, people from fishing companies. We had people from the Spirit of New Zealand. We had people from a multitude of different corporate organisations getting involved with putting that net out there really wide. But, you know, we need to help people who want to make a difference. We need to assist these leaders, and like what the Sir Peter Blake Trust does, nurturing leaders, is absolutely fantastic. They need inspiration, emotion, and opportunity. Those are the three things that the psychologists tell me create behavioural change. We've got some inspiring people right here who are creating these beautiful pictures that get people engaged with it. The emotion is really about what people love. So we focus on getting people to love the coast, getting people to love the water. Jacques Cousteau said, we protect what we love. We need to create that connection for people to love it first. Then we give them the opportunity to change. And that might be a glass instead of a plastic one, or a stainless steel bottle, or a stainless steel straw. Or it might be access to a system through the Department of Corrections where you can get riparian planting done for very, very cheap. We need to generate tools, and we need to generate Kaitiaki, is what I reckon, to get these leaders to come up, stand up, and get what all of these people in here want. We need to find the people who are willing to go and walk into the hard places and work with the people who are not in this room to scale these things up on a bigger thing. So thank you.
Fantastic, Sam. Lots of nodding from everybody in the room. Comments, questions from the panel?
One thing that worries me a lot is with the future expansion of the population of Auckland, I don't think education is going to keep up with the pressure. And I think we're going to need more than just this sort of touchy-feely, nice sort of social adjustment, because it won't happen fast enough to protect the Gulf. And I think in view of that, we've got to crank up more legally protected areas. Otherwise, they're just going to get hammered by people who don't understand.
Look, I agree that that's important. As an organisation, we chose not to go into the lobbying space. I'm not saying I think it's very, very important. But I believe, on a personal level, that we need pressure from the top and the bottom. And basically, the people from the bottom, kids influence their parents. You know, if you think about, I've got a 2.5-year-old daughter, the amount of times that she influences me in a day, oh my dear, you know, she runs the house. But that is one way to start changing behaviour within parents, and I've seen studies that prove it. Environmental education in kids changes households' behaviour. It works, right? But we're starting to develop some of these tools now. But I'm not saying that it's the only thing. We need everything, and we need everything urgently at the same time. The top-down stuff from the political action happens when everyone underneath all says we want this, right? So we need both.
How long have we got?
For what?
For, you know, this, you say this urgency.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, because, you know, that you know, the ground up the roots and shoots program, you know, of educating children is fantastic, but how many generations have we got before it's too late?
Well, we've already got most of our shallow reefs stuffed.
Right.
They're kinderbarons from East Cape to North Cape, unless you're in a marine reserve or a few other places like close to estuaries and things. And they're spreading into the south as well. And that is because there's not enough snapper and not enough crayfish left in the sea to carry out their normal ecological function, which is partly to eat the kinner and keep the reefs healthy. That's just one example.
I understand. I'm just trying to figure out how, you know, okay, so my thing was to do, you know, make people love these little critters. I totally get what you're talking about it, because when you fall in love with a barnacle, you know,
divorce them, but then you go diving and find one that's nice.
Yeah, but the thing is, and then you don't have to recycle them.
Yeah.
But but what I'm saying is, okay, so how then, you know, with this bad news stuff, how do we get that out? And how do we get that urgency? You know, that seems to be what's lacking. Is that, I mean, in the South Island, I had no idea how urgent it was or is with the Hauraki Gulf.
Just to go into that just real quickly, and I want to push it back to Mark, because he's been talking about value, right? value is one of the things that people get emotional about. They get emotional about money. If we do more ecological services studies to say, this is the actual value of what we've got here. This is what it is. And there's a bunch of different ways of looking at value. Mauri, I think, is one of my favourite ones. And to me, that's incredibly important, is the spiritual value. But if we can start to calculate that value, perhaps it's easier to say, this is what we're looking at, is this loss? Are we prepared to have that? And that'll start to engage older people. Younger kids, much easier to change than older, right? But older people often change when they get slapped on the wrist with a fine or their boat gets taken away or something like that. But, could more of that analysis help, Mark, do you think?
I think it's only part of the solution. And I think, actually, it was Rochelle who earlier on referred to some of the successes we've had in what are basically wicked problems. And environmental degradation is a wicked problem, like other social pervasive problems that we have. Increasing cancer rates, gambling addictions, issues with smoking, traffic accidents and so on. And the wins that we've had have been an approach which has taken all the tools we can find, carrots and sticks, and have thrown it at it for a long period of time. And that's required significant investment in thinking. And so one of the major social changes that's occurred in the last 20 years has been we've seen a massive reduction in smoking rates in New Zealand. There's still some pockets of demographics that are still struggling, but for the most part, in our lifetimes, we've seen a massive change. And it's come about because of that multi-pronged approach. It's been financial punitive. The taxes keep going up all the time. It's been a removal of branding and advertising, including sponsorship of sport. It's been a massive social marketing campaign which has tried to persuade us with shock tactics and the imagery that we're presented with of the implications of this kind of human behaviour. We've used every tool in the box to try and slowly turn us in a direction to our own benefit. And that's the kind of approach that I think it's going to take for the Hauraki Gulf. It's going to take the Sam Judds of this world doing the things he's doing. It's going to take the regulatory approach and lobbying the minister like Legacy and others do. It's going to take scientists like Roger showing us and advocating for full marine protection. And it's going to take social scientists like me to say, you know what? If you actually degrade this area to a point where it's no longer valuable for people to use, here's what it's going to cost in terms of the lost revenue associated with the recreational use and values. It's going to take tangata whenua to say, under the Treaty of Waitangi, this is taonga, and we need it protected, and we have the right to have it protected. So all of those things need to come together to try and slowly turn around this slide that we've been on for decades now with the quality of the Gulf.
But Mark, even if they come together, that's great. Like, let's collaborate more. But we need more of all of this. There's actually not enough. The results are getting worse. They're not getting better. We consume more and more single-use plastic per person every year. I know a bit about that one. The water quality gets worse. The spearfishing gets worse. It's not, we haven't turned that corner yet. We need all of this stuff. We need more of this stuff as well. That was the point that I was trying to make. We need to generate more kaitiaki. People like these Mad Marine crew that are here. This is awesome. These are like people coming up who are learning these skills. And what you guys are doing with the leadership programs, can we channel that to get more action in this space?
I think
you can.
I think like most of these sort of issues, because it can get really depressing, right? It can get, oh my gosh, no matter how hard we try, how much we throw at it, we're not winning the overall battle. I think the counter to that is to point to the shining lights, to point to where we have got some wins. And this is why I take people up to Goat Island. And this is why I take people to Tiri Matangi. And when I show them what's happened there, this has happened in my lifetime. We're not talking about a century or even 50 years. We're talking about a place in Tiri, for example, and I know it's a terrestrial environment, but that influences the marine environment it's connected to. We're talking about a place there that was the initiative of two people at the University of Auckland with other community who got behind that. It was leaders who had the guts to go out there and say, we can make a difference. And all of us enjoy the benefits of that, whether we go there or not. It's the same with Goat Island and the people there, and John Morton and Bill Ballantyne and others who advocated and fought for that for a decade before it actually happened. You know, those shining lights are the beacons of hope, and those are the things that show if we just focus on a few and get those wins, then maybe at least we can say we've made a difference in one area or two areas or three or four or five.
I'm going to stop you there because that was warm and positive and I liked it. Round of applause, please.